Hello, and welcome to the 21st episode of Last Attempt, a World of Warcraft Guildcast. I'm your host, Squirrelthug, and with us again, our co-host, Templrivanho.
Hello.
How have you been? What have you been up to?
Uh, Unfortunately, other than raid, haven't really done too much just because of the constant migraines. But that being the case, right now I am enjoying the fact that I can do the Shard of Dundun stuff without having to do each individual shard. Having the ability now to do all 8 out of 8. So I am just very easily catching up with it, which is probably the best thing about this new patch. I mean, people may think the Omnium Folio. I say it's Shard of Dundun. Um, but other than that, I'm going to be catching up on getting the Omnium Folio and possibly doing some leveling. I'm not sure.
Nice. So, overall, how much time does it take you now with all the alts that you run through?
I would say, assuming you have to also get the treasures, maybe. So I do 4 characters. Each one has the uh, 2 main professions. For example, Temp has blacksmithing and jewel crafting. So on top of the Shard of Dundun stuff, I also grab the treasures for the professions. So you sort of do both. Um, so I would say probably about an hour 15 minutes versus about 4+ hours.
Oh, nice. So much faster.
Oh yeah, it's kind of absurd how long it was taking to do, even just 4 characters, and that's, you know, even without getting the treasures for the professions, just getting all the Shard of Dunduns, 8 of them on each character is just patently absurd. Running through each individual one.
Yeah, that's a big quality of life change for players, and we've got quite a bit of that coming in some of these patch updates and some of the news items that we have to talk about. There's quite a lot of changes. I mean, not only that we've just got because the patch is live now, but coming in the announced 12.1 patch with the new season and everything. There's a lot more coming than I kind of expected, but it is a new season, so that's it's pretty exciting. I've actually just raid logged so far this week, so I'm gonna try to get my game time in like today and tomorrow over the weekend. Try and run some raids like heroic just to get some. There's just like currencies I need, and I need to run. I want to push keys, but I
Hmm.
don't want to do it with randoms because of the it's 50-50. In I don't I haven't really been tracking it, but just kind of just going off of what I remember, it's almost straight down the middle. Half the time it's great and flawless, and half the time it is a struggle. But people, even if it takes like 50 minutes to finish one, people will do it because they're just there to spend their void cores.
Yeah, and I think you said it was either last podcast or maybe the one before them. At the very least, them or people, randoms, um, at least they want to both spend their bonus rolls as well as get their Ascendant Void shards because, like you said, um, that means that they're more likely to keep doing the dungeon even though they're not going to time it. So that's definitely a net positive.
Yeah. The alternative being people just quit and you never get to the end.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's nice that there's that perseverance factor in there. But yeah, I want to try to see if some of the guildies are on at some point and try and push some keys, figure that out. Or I want to play some classic. I've been itching to get back into hardcore and pick that character up again because it's just so much fun.
Yeah, for me, I just enjoy retail, so I've never really been interested in classic, but I'm sure Kane will be happy to hear that.
Yeah, there's if they had a hardcore version in retail, I would definitely play that.
Hmm.
I mean, as an alt, I definitely wouldn't try to main that. I don't know how far I'd get with that. I mean, it's really hard to die in retail, honestly. Even just like leveling up, there's not a lot of opportunities for you to like for a party to wipe or anything in dungeons, and just kind of the way they scale, and how you can be in any level, and that you just scale people up or down to to whatever the dungeon is. But if you're a level 15 tank, you get a really big buff, right? So you have like these
Hmm.
low level tanks coming in and just speed running the dungeon. So it's I think it would just be a different experience. I don't think hardcore would work in retail, but if they figured it out, I think it'd be fun. It'd be fun kind of little thing. But yeah, classic's got its bonuses. I'm sure that they're actually going to come out with an update for Classic Plus pretty soon, and I expect a big announcement at BlizzCon because
Yeah,
they're really trying to allude to something in that last promo video with Holly Longdale.
yeah, and with the I believe it's an encrypted build for 1.60. Presumably, it is that Classic Plus, with the code name Camelot, which I do find interesting that they codename it that. You'd think it would be something more WoW related than Legend of King Arthur, but maybe there's a reason for that.
Yeah, that would be interesting if it wasn't just like an obscured code word to keep everyone guessing. Blizzard is pretty good at that. I think they don't stick to like the old ways of what the way they've tried to like obscure things from players when they want to. I feel like they've really evolved on that front, and so that I think if it doesn't end up being something to do with Camelot in some way, then it's just like, oh, they're just up in their game, right?
Hmm.
um, but speaking of our patch that just went live and all the things that brought us, we have the Omnium Folio, and there's actually several guides on Wowhead for each one of the features that came with 12.0.7. And we've got quite a lot of them. And there's some changes and some story elements. And so there's actually, and just because of so many, there's actually a single Wowhead article that has all of those guides on a single page. So you just go to that one and just kind of click through on the things that really interest you, because they don't all seem to be things that every player would be interested in, right? They're kind of, I mean, one of them is just the lore walking, and some people don't really like those, but they do award some pretty cool toys and cosmetics and stuff sometimes. So I'm looking forward to doing that one.
Yeah, the I'm just glad that they have, sort of a one size fits all guide. Um, we don't have to go around uh, going through all of that. Um, as far as 1207 too, we do have the World Cup decor. And
Yeah.
one thing I'll say about that is they actually went through the trouble of giving us some, I think they're brand new tabards. I know for the Alliance, it looks really good. Like it's a nice, uh, sort of newly updated model. The way especially the way the front and the front logo and the back logo look,
Hmm.
and it looks really snazzy.
You know, one of the other features in 12.0.7, and I haven't grabbed my Omnium Folio yet because again, just raid logged, and I didn't fly around anywhere. But There's a guide up on Waha, of course, whatever, but it's actually just really simple. There's a camp that is on the second level, just around the bazaar. It's just across from the crafting station and up. And that tent is, I believe, it was for the ritual sites. And you get quests and such, and there's ritual site vendors there. You can talk to them. There's a vendor or a quest giver there now, and they'll start a quest for the Omnium Folio. You can talk to them. Then they'll have you fly all the way up to the Isle of Coiled Isle, and you can basically finish the quest there. For the first week, you're just going to get the Omnium Folio. There's a quest dialogue of a few exchanges back and forth, and it'll basically tell you how it works. And then it'll just give you a mote of Omnial Inquiry. And typically, you're going to be getting these at the end of like a weekly quest for this. But for the first one, you just click some dialogue boxes, and then they give it to you. So it's pretty simple, and it gives you the first rune for the Omnium Folio. That's kind of the core of everything, kind of which one you decide to go with. So definitely, players should go out there and pick that up. It won't take you very much time. I know that's ironic coming from me, but it's a really short quest, and you don't have to do really anything other than fly up to Qualdanas.
Yeah, short, sweet, simple, very good, especially considering that it doesn't seem you have to like go through a bunch of quests. Like I know for Decimus and the Senate Void Shards, you had to at the very least do his quests up to a certain point, or else he wouldn't talk to you because he's a very mean uh, Void guy. I think it's a lot better with that.
Yeah, the this time around, getting the player power, the borrowed power, is really easy. It's basically you're just getting this item, and if I remember correctly from the PTR, this is going to be an icon around your minimap. So you'll just be able to click it right there. If you have any add-ons to change your minimap around, you might have to drag some of your icons around to see where it's at because it'll probably be hiding behind something. But yeah, that's where you'll be able to should be able to find your Omnium Folio menu.
Yeah, I think it's going to be similar to other um, newer systems, like you said, where it's going to be very quick to change. For example, the disc belt, all you had to do was like right click it and you could change whatever powers you wanted. Didn't have to go through a lot of to do to change whatever abilities you wanted.
Yeah, and so I want to move on to our next news item. This is going to cover the Sporefall raid that we just got, and the the first mythic kill, of course, by Team Liquid in like the very first few minutes the servers came up, and we're gonna go over catalyzing this gear, and there's some interesting things about this lockout that would be um, really good for players who've held on to a lot of void cores. First, Liquid cleared Mythic Rotmire roughly 15 minutes after servers came up. They put 22 players in the raid, and because of the Mythic difficulty, this seemed like um, they were going to wipe. A whole bunch of them got killed by some exploding sporelings, I think, and they still got through it. It doesn't seem to be a really, and not just because Liquid. I mean, they're a really good team. Not just because they did it really quickly, um, but there's been a lot of kills, so far on this boss, and it's a pretty simple mechanic overall to contend with, and the mythic version of it isn't really much more complicated than the heroic version.
Yeah, I would even argue that it's not very much different from the normal version.
Yeah, it's and it's interesting that because the mythic tier for this is flex, it also behaves in the same way as heroic in that, heroic is flex, and if you go in and you beat the boss or all the bosses, whatever, right? Let's say you go to Chimeras because it's basically similar, right? It's one boss raid. So you go and you beat Chimeras on heroic. You can go back in, but you will be ineligible for adding to the loot table. So for every 5 players that are in the raid, there's a chance for one piece of loot to drop. So if you have 25 players, but 5 of them don't have already killed the boss and they're locked out, they'll still be able to participate, but the raid as a whole, only is now eligible for 4 pieces of loot as opposed to a raid full of people who need loot or haven't done it, and then you'll get a chance at 5 pieces. Now, it's not a guarantee, it's just a chance. But that's how it works now for heroic and the other flex versions, and that's now how the Sporefall raid is working. So you can go in again and again on mythic difficulty. Another quirk with this is that at the end, even if you've not been eligible for loot, but the boss dies on mythic, you will be able to spend your void cores. So if you have a bunch of them saved up, you can just go in here and in a single week spend all your void cores and just clean out the table. You'll get 2 items, one of them which you will be able to catalyze because every single armor class, has at least one item that is able to be catalyzed. Um, and there's like a necklace and like maybe a trinket or something on the loot table. There's some pretty good items, and they're all at 298 if you're on Mythic.
Yeah, and what's most surprising is just the fact that, well, initially people were able to use their bonus rolls again and again on him, even if you went back in to Mythic over and over again. Again, since it's similar, like heroic and normal.
Yeah.
Um, but what was interesting is once players discovered that, they actually went to the forums and asked Blizzard, was that intended or was it okay? Their response seemed to indicate it wasn't really intended, but that they're okay with it the way it is right now. So if you are planning on doing that, using all your bonus rolls on him over and over again, Blizzard is, okay with that. You're not going to get banned or anything.
Yeah, they're not gonna like take your gear away or something, or it shouldn't be viewed as a bug, So at least, and maybe if it was, it's at least working in the way that they are okay with. So that's good news for those players who have some void cores saved up. And again, it's a pretty easy boss. It's pretty simple, very puggable. So get out there and get that gear. For our next news item, there's been another lure nerf, and it seems to be targeted for phase one. The standout change is that resonance no longer triggers. In practice, that means raid never has to drop the crystal during phase one, eliminating both the crystal clip by resonance or a glaive instant wipe and the awkward crystal drop timing around the memory game. Because typically, if you're holding a rune and the laser goes around and hits all the runes successfully, right? And everyone's in the right order, you're still taking damage, right? And so you can't be holding the crystal while you take damage during that memory game. That doesn't happen anymore. So you don't have to put it down. So, and then there's like certain things that overlap. There's a glaive that's coming in because you dropped it and you're not, and there's like no one that's like gonna move it, and you're trying to stand there for the memory game. It was an overlap that was very, very difficult sometimes, right? Like it doesn't feel like a mechanic you can just figure out and you'll get past. It's just an unfortunate circumstance of certain things overlapping, and they seem to overlap quite often, but not consistently enough to just, I don't know. We've not run Lower on Mythic, but I know that fight. We did it a lot on Heroic, and some of those mechanics still apply, and those are hard to contend with.
Yeah, easier phase one and easier practice, I think, is the name of the game with that change.
Yeah, the changes that they made a few other changes in here. The cast times critically up to 4 seconds, criticality up to 4 seconds, Dark Constellation up to 3 seconds on Mythic, and Star Splinter can no longer hit the same player twice. So that at least with the Star Splinter, you're not, and I believe you take damage with that when you get hit with it. So these are all really good changes, and they're making this fight a little bit easier, a little more approachable, but not completely, right? Still not a pushover, and this is quite possibly the hardest boss that World of Warcraft has ever had.
No doubt. I mean, the way that even Liquid was saying, just how difficult and just how precise you have to be. Um, Again, even um, the intermission phase, whenever she pulls you in and everybody has to spread out. On heroic, you can get away with putting uh, 5 people in 4 separate groups. However, on mythic, you definitely have to still spread to the point where each person needs to be away from each other at a certain amount, a certain length, or I'm sorry, certain distance. So these definitely help, but as for Laura getting, I don't know, much easier, uh, it's hard to say because this is still just such a chaotic fight. And if one thing gets out of control, as we've seen with what was it, 380 plus pools for Liquid, and Echo was similar, um, it's still just nutty.
Yeah, it's a really busy fight, and even with the Sporefall raid coming out, we'll be able to go in there, even run it several times down the boss a few times in a row, grab a few pieces of gear with the Void Core system, and get our item level a little bit higher, do some more damage output, more mitigation, more healing throughput, right? Like whatever it is, you boost the overall power of our raid, but that Laura fight is still going to be difficult because it's about mechanics. And some of these things, your health and your item level are not going to save you from getting killed by some of these things, and they overlap in real bad ways quite often.
Yeah, for example, how you were mentioning that uh, the crystals, what is it? The resonance no longer triggering uh, Tears of Laura. I mean, that's an absolutely huge change for Phase One. Cannot be overstated just how, with the glaives going on, especially. I believe they in Mythic there's like 1 or 2 extra glaives. Don't quote me on that, but just being able to have someone get hit by them, obviously you don't want that to happen. I mean, it's probably going to kill you, but at the very least, it's not necessarily going to wipe the entire raid if you
Yeah,
don't then soak the tears. So
because if you're trying to move out of the way of the glaive and it touches you, but you're not really like standing in it or standing in its path, like you'll take a hit, but you'll survive, and then you're gonna need some hills. But if because it's like taking damage and it doesn't do it all at once, so you can basically survive with that. But if you get clipped like that, and you're holding the crystal, it's done.
yeah, and then it's another 2 or 3 minutes at the very least to reset and everything. So um, I really do think it's just them uh, sort of how do I put it, prettying up the fight so you don't have to bang your head against the wall as many times as you might have done in the past.
Yeah, which is it's really impressive for everyone who's been able to achieve this, before these nerfs have come in, and the nerfs that we should probably expect are coming. it seems like Blizzard's really trying to tune this and continuously tune this to a point where they're getting a certain number of kills for guilds or whatever. And I'm pretty sure it's mostly guilds that are doing this. People aren't just going and pugging Mythic Laura.
Yeah, which
I think it's only like 300 right now, right? Somewhere between 3 and 400
somewhere around
guilds.
there.
So it's not a
Um,
lot.
but the idea of pugging Mythic Laura sounds like just the most horrible thing.
Yeah. So yeah, there's not many guilds who have killed her so far, and as these nerfs come in and as our power level rises, we see more people getting her down, but it's still a mechanic heavy fight and requires everyone to be locked in, and you have to run the reps. You're gonna have to do it a lot, and you're gonna have to wipe through every single phase before you're gonna get it down. So, just expect this one to be really difficult, and if you're I mean, there's some guilds that are in the wipe count, up to like 700, maybe even close to 1,000. That's a lot of
Yeah,
wipes. They've
it's
just been
just
chugging away
crazy.
at it for the entire season, basically. That those are people who are like dedicated, and they're like really throwing themselves at the problem until they get through. Right, that perseverance is there. Um, but but yeah, that is several weeks of attempts of going after Laura with long raid nights.
Yeah, long are the days, or long we're long past the days of like Wrath of the Lich King, uh, and going into the final Lich King fight, which I think was. I'm just trying to remember for the guild I was in then. It was something like maybe 300 pools, and I'm not sure what the equivalent of Liquid or Echo was back then, but at the very least, it had to be less than 300. Whereas now, for the top guild, it's 380 some, and the lower end guild is going to be like you said, and like the 700s and stuff. So it's just insane the difference between what was it, almost 20 years ago versus now.
Yeah, this one, and I don't know, it's just a really interesting fight, and I do think that it got overtuned for the first iteration of it. There seemed to be a hiccup in how everything was working out. I don't think that a lot of people enjoyed uh, that Illyria went down really quickly, and then there was just nothing to watch until Tuesday.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where you wonder, like, where the disconnect in terms of their development happened to where um, she was just, or Illyria was just so much easier than Laura. Obviously, Laura is, the final raid boss, but essentially, Illyria was almost the penultimate boss, even though technically that would be Beleren. But still,
In terms of power level, definitely, it would
mhm,
be Illyria and then Laura.
um,
Because in the fight with Illyria, she's empowered by Laura.
right. So it's just very odd. You just wonder, you know, what happened there. Maybe they thought that it was just, I don't know,
I mean,
more
it's
difficult.
midnight. The
Yeah.
add-on apocalypse, right, had already come in. We felt that in the way that they tuned everything, and just how our dungeons were already feeling before. Because right, we had a couple weeks of dungeons and heroics and such before, and mythic zeros before we were able to get anything else, and before the race started. And so even that difference was a little bit where they were separated was odd to the community, but the dungeons were easier. Like everything was tuned down. And while Mythic Plus, you can just run them until you get to a wall, right? You just push your keys to however high they keep going. Um, a lot more people are doing tens now than ever, and that's either because of how easy it is to get item level, or some of it's the tuning and how they tune things, and that was kind of in the first section, right, of what was released. Because the first week it was just that, and we had to wait the following week for the Isle of Quel'Danas or the March on Quel'Danas to release. And so, they have an opportunity to kind of like tune that fight and change it up a little bit. And people have speculated that the intensity of Laura of that fight was a knee jerk reaction from Blizzard because of the reaction that the community had gotten for the first round of the Race to World First.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense. Um, and I don't know. At the very least, you know, going back to Laura, at least that was a real fight and a real nail biter. Seeing both teams compete for that. Um, but
It was also thematically an amazing fight. It,
oh
it
yeah,
definitely felt like she was a very powerful, formidable opponent. And there's some that are just big. It's the same thing. I've fought a bunch of things like this. You're just really big, But Illyria really felt like a god, and it was really disappointing that she died very easily. Um, like I mean, we haven't done our own mythic yet, but still, like on the heroic difficulties and such, and then even for liquid, right? Seeing them annihilate her, in the same night that they had pulled her. Um, so I think that was undertuned, and then they knee jerk reaction overtuned Laura, and now we're just kind of like we're being tuned back slowly from that.
yeah, which makes sense. Want to give a good show for Race the World first, and go forward with other guilds after.
Yeah, but I guess it is abnormal for them to have so many nerfs as time goes on, as the season goes on, as opposed to kind of being sort of done with the nerfs to anything after the Hall of Fame closes.
Right, and it has been a while, come to think of it. Like, I think the Hall of Fame closed at, was it 12:05, and we're at 12:07? I mean,
Yeah,
realistically, it was kind of fast. I mean, in terms of not necessarily fast in terms of, you know, the guilds progressing, but it was fast in terms of patch cycle.
yeah. And on to our next news item. We have some news from the other side of the pond, and then far past that continent and over a mountain range in China, they have gotten this a promotional mount. Now, I did see that this same mount model was available in Miss Pandaria Classic, but as far as we know, the classic servers and the items that we get there are locked to just that iteration of the game. So if you're playing Miss Pandaria Classic and you get something, if that version and that server rolls into the next expansion, which they have not announced that, then you'll be able to keep that and anything that you've gotten before, but it's not warbound, it's not account bound, nothing like that. So we technically can get this panda, which is adorable. It's got a baby panda laying on the back asleep, and it's got a bunch of other really cool aesthetics. But if as far as retail WoW goes, it is currently exclusive to China, and they have they have sort of like annual game that they bring around, or there's like an opportunity for some type of game for them to do, and it's basically, if you know China, it's basically gambling.
Yeah, this is the big controversy right now, which now we've had mounts and we've had items or transmogs in the past that have only gone to China. Um, but this seems to be not just a pattern, but a negative one, especially because the way we found out about it was actually before it was confirmed to be China exclusive. Um, it was actually found within like the Mount Journal, before later on, I don't know if it was a day or two, it was announced it was China exclusive. And unfortunately, with this pattern, continues to emerge, us as players, it's really starting to feel just not just negative, but sort of a betrayal of us players, because while the Chinese servers seem to be really getting a lot of good exclusives, the unfortunate reality is we're then getting bad exclusives in the form of the Hearth Steel decor items. At least, we haven't really had, I would argue, a
Does China
really,
not have decor items?
I mean, insofar as what we're getting versus what they're getting, my guess is that they would be getting the same decor items as well, but um, in exchange, we're not getting these really good, high polygon, really nice mounts as well.
And cosmetics. I mean, they got a
Mhm,
swimsuit and an awesome hat. Like
yeah,
either one. Obviously, I'd love both, but either one I'll take. And we just don't get those kinds of exclusives. Like I understand that a mount would be exclusive, but I don't understand that the mount like model, like the base model or the base skeleton of something like that would be exclusive. Same thing for a cosmetic. Like sure, this coloration of it is exclusive, but what is the reasoning or the justification for not recoloring that and releasing it on retail for the rest of the regions? Not just America, right? The home of Blizzard. So
right,
kind of crazy that China is getting exclusives and there's never been a mention of like an American exclusive, which to be honest, America doesn't really do stuff like that. Um, but I and honestly, if and again, like I don't expect an American exclusive. Like maybe like the rest of the regions get an exclusive because we're obviously being segregated from China. And I get it; they were out of the game for a couple of years, but I mean they've been back for a while now. Like, how many handouts are we going to give them? But honestly, the exclusive really just seemed to be a marketing ploy that's working very well in that region. And I just don't think that that's a good enough justification to keep doing it.
right. And we also know, and we've discussed it before, that whatever China is getting exclusively does still go through Blizzard in terms of, we got this design, can we use it? And Blizzard gives them an okay. So I'm wondering also right now, since we keep seeing this as a pattern, if I'd be very curious if there's some sort of contract where it says, um, that because these are China
Oh,
exclusives,
I don't
that
think that they're like bound any. I think that this is purely prop. Have you seen the way that they set up the how you get these mounts and how you get these exclusives and such?
yeah, it's
They're
it's it's a gamble.
predatory.
Yeah, yeah.
Like
Um,
straight up they are predatory and and to get them they're so expensive to just like which it's like most people that are going to get it statistically are going to end up paying most of the total price, right? Like it's like, oh, maybe you get lucky and you get it the first time, but like unlikely. I think that especially under Microsoft, these are things that they're just doing for profit. But like, and I don't think that they should stop the exclusives. They just rethink it because like you were saying, this is not. This doesn't feel great. This feels like a betrayal.
right. And the unfortunate news, and I don't know, I don't think it's in our list of news, is that Microsoft has said that they want more in-game microtransactions just as a whole. Um, their justification being, it's, let's see if, I don't know if I can find it, but it was essentially just that our games are more valuable and our IPs are more valuable. Ergo, we need to get more microtransactions in. So that's not necessarily a bit of good news to hear whenever we're thinking about these China exclusives that are, predatory and such. Um, as a side note, we know that EA has announced that they want in-game advertising in their games as well. So I'm hoping that if they do, put these exclusive mounts for the other regions, it's just a one-time purchase, and we don't get into the predatory stuff. But it's always a possibility and a major
Yeah, I
concern.
don't want to be included in the exclusive market if it means that we get those kinds of games. I'll
Right.
pass on that, right? Like I don't think any of the players want to get them in that way, just in the same normal way that we always get our things. It's just they definitely this feels like a bad move. Like definitely in terms of like the money that they're making, I'm sure this is a slam dunk. But this one in particular seems to be being ignored, actively ignored by Blizzard because I know that there's a lot of discourse about this every single time there's an exclusive and it's never addressed. And they never bring it up. It's in any interview, even I mean, I don't know. They really never mention China or that version of the game in anything. Like I've never heard Ian say anything about that version of the game.
Right.
So it's almost like it's a different game, right? And they have some pretty insane things going on over there. I think was it the Titanforge servers and such.
Yeah, yeah. And they're doing a lot of changes too, which is interesting. That is for the Titan servers.
Yeah. So again, we've got a lot of news items. So onto the next news item that we have the add-on trials that CurseForge was hosting or is hosting. They pushed their deadline back. What this means is initially they they were accepting add-ons that had already been created, but only after the launch of Midnight. And they've pushed that back to when the Midnight beta started. And so I believe so it moved from March 2nd when it released this year to back to November 11th when the Midnight beta launch, so that any of the add-ons, because it sort of makes sense that during the Midnight beta that there would be add-ons that were being created and tuned specifically for Midnight, especially with all the different add-on changes and everything, kind of the new era of add-ons. So anything that's pre-existing before that date is still ineligible, but this basically means that the window is just a little bit bigger, but still inclusive of focusing on like the new era of add-ons going forward.
Yeah, more items the better, I say, especially in a competition like this. Um, I'd really like to see whether it's, I mean, I would love to see new add-ons, but just the fact that they're including the older ones is great to hear. You know, um, just to have more people participate.
Yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun to see kind of like what people come up with. I imagine a lot of the submissions are going to be these pre-existing ones, especially they're pulling the date back to the midnight beta. But yeah, these are going to be pretty interesting if we get some brand new ones. And I'm sure there are going to be some really creative ones. Some things people just thought up, and we'll have something fun to work with. Um, but yeah, so that's it for that news item. Moving on to 12.1, the Curse of Ula'tek. We did get confirmation with the blue posts and such, right? With of a lot of details on 12.1. And in there, we see that we have the troll raid that we've kind of been alluding to, or Blizzard has been alluding to, this whole season, and it's going to have 8 bosses, and Notably, the Void Core system is going to be moving forward. The and and several of the other systems that we have are like moving forward into this this new patch or this new season. We are going to have to wait a little bit to get our Ascendant Void Cores, um, and there's a mention that those are actually going to be able to be used on not just weapons and trinkets, but also I believe it was rings, but maybe it was also necklaces. Um, I'll have to read through that right now, and then we'll circle back around to that. But they did also mention a big change with Discord in your guild chat, and there's a way that hopefully is pretty simple for players who want to participate in this to just kind of link your Discord and such, and it will probably have to be the guild leader. They'll have to get online and do these changes and add them to your Discord, but you'll be able to have your guild chat in Discord. There was actually some pushback from the community, and there's people that were mentioning that this is not a welcomed change. It's great that it's opt-in, but some people were saying that they very definitely do not want Blizzard to be connected to their basically private Discord.
I think the more major concern is whether or not this is going to go through Blizzard servers or within their purview as far as them seeing the chats, and the possibility that if you say something on Discord and it's connected to BattleNet, if Blizzard would see the message and could ban you for what you say on Discord. Um, like you said, having a private Discord is important. Um, Now, if they would come out and say, "Hey guys, all it does is just, you know, have the messages go through our game as well as BattleNet itself, but we don't see them." It's sort of like the idea, with add-ons being sort of black, or the information that you get for things like health. You can't actually see what the health
Oh, the
is,
secret values.
the secret values exactly, where you can't see the secret value of the health, but or you can't act on it, but the add-on can use the secret values to determine what to do, whereas you can't interact with it directly. Um, so I'm hoping that's the case, but
It well, you can message from either side. So,
right.
if it was just a broadcast of your guild chat that you can link into and you can just see a feed in your Discord, that's actually pretty useful, and I think that would have been much more welcome. But the fact that you can coordinate your raid from your phone, which is like one of their selling points, um, that I imagine means that they are going to. I mean, even if they didn't have anything to do with the messages passing through and they kind of ignored it, it's still getting posted to guild chat. That's something that they log, right? It's logged, it's saved on the servers. You log in, you look at your guild chat, you can see it. And I'm sure there's going to be an icon that shows, you know, that it's a Discord message when you're looking at guild chat in game.
Yeah, they did
Um,
they did show a separate icon next to your message indicating that it's from Discord.
yeah, so you'll be able to see that. How else are they going to be able to tag that, right? And also, it's again, it's going to be listed in the guild chat anytime you log in. And so they're going to have to hold on to these messages themselves in the same way that they're holding on to the guild chat messages right now. So, but I think the issue that people were saying with this is that there's a chance of you getting banned um, when posting, right? Like, so let's say you're posting in Discord and you say something that's, I think the thought process is you're already posting in your Discord. Your Discord has a much more relaxed um, attitude about language and such and topics that you can talk about and things you can say. without really anybody being offended. And of course, this is somebody that's in your guild, but for really large guilds, everyone in the guild is not always in the Discord. And so there may be a situation where you're saying something in Discord that's just totally normal for your Discord and within the tone that's allowed. But an individual, even just a few in your guild, see that and they report you. And now you're getting banned. And then we have the recent um, mention from Blizzard and the controversy and the back and forth on Twitter about being able to get banned for cursing and such. And you know that language is allowed on Discord because it's a private server.
Hmm. But they're still, at least for right now, they haven't really addressed that issue. So hopefully we could see them, where they don't see the Discord messages. But again, if that's the case, then keeping Discord separate from WoW, or I guess it's technically with your BattleNet. Um, I'm just trying to see. Yeah, it's more with your BattleNet and not just WoW itself. So yeah, hopefully there's some more clarification on how that works. But yeah, for right now, um, I think it's in probably everybody's best interest not to utilize that function, at least not yet.
Yeah, hopefully this doesn't end up terrible, and it's a lot better than players are afraid that it's going to be. But you know, we'll find out once 12.1 comes out and we get our hands on this. We'll see. I don't know that our guild is going to jump on this right away. I know that our guild leader um, seemed to lean in the other direction. So it's an interesting addition, but I don't think it's for every guild. You know, and I'm in a guild that is really heavy on Discord, and I think that just the tone of that guild, it would be seamless to just be connected in game. Like there wouldn't like they don't ever talk about or say anything in those channels or in general or whatever that would get anybody banned, right? It's just a much more I I don't want to make it seem like our guild is like a bunch of rowdy kids or anything. But like we don't care if you cuss, right? But Blizzard
Hmm.
cares, right? And so, but I'm in a few guilds and places on Discord where that's it's not like I guess it's not really frowned upon, but people typically just do not engage in that type of language. There's like a different kind of community there, um, and and I don't know. People will say the F word sometimes or whatever, but there's I don't know. I just feel like some of the languages in different guilds that I've been in or that I'm currently in like kind of either in my mind would make them eligible or ineligible for that connection. Like if I was the guild leader for each of these guilds and I was looking at all of them, like I would be putting them on two different lists. Like, nope, not you, but you can go.
Yeah. And again, TOSs are a delicate beast because you're not just talking about um, one of them now, you're talking about two of them and how they actually interact or conflict with each other. Um, gosh, I just don't know. It's one of those things where it sounds, like a great convenience, but the more you think about it, the more you're just unsure.
Yeah, again, like I said, I think that our guild probably won't do it, but I am in other guilds that will, and I'll be able to see how it works out with them, as opposed to like the way that our guild handles it. So I'm very certain that come 12.1 I will have at least a couple opportunities to engage in that. And so I think I will. It does seem that if you as a player want to participate in that in the back and forth and being able to perhaps like message in the guild Discord channel in Discord and have that sent over, you'll have to link your account. I don't know that there's really any sort of like recognizable connection for a random username on Discord to some identification within the guild chat, right? Because some people's like usernames are just like weird and such, and it could just be a random person that just joined your guild, and that's just a Discord. They can come in from anywhere. So I think you as a player are going to have to attach your account to Discord if it already isn't, because I think some people have already attached their Discord because there's like promotional items and such you can get for WoW. So there's a lot of people that probably already have that connection. But it seems like you're going to need that in order to kind of message back and forth if you want to participate in the guild chat. So yeah, once we get closer to that, we'll be able to see that. It's also going to be on the PTR. So if you've got a private guild or a private Discord that you have just for yourself, you want to test it out, that's probably a really good way to do that. It's not really that hard to start a guild. You just get a few signatures, and then after that, you just kick everyone, and then you have your own personal guild on one of your alts, and then connect your account and go test it on your private Discord and just kind of see how it works. When the PTR drops, which it actually should be dropping in like another week or so, right? Because usually it's like when the previous patch drops, the current week or the following week, the PTR notes drop, and then the PTR.
Hmm. I will say, us getting the information for the next patch was it was right after 1207 hit, which I was actually kind of surprised it was that quick and that fast. Um, I'm just wondering, why it seems like they sort of, I wouldn't say rushed it, let me be clear, but just how, you know, hurriedly it seemed that the information came out. Uh, not saying it's a bad thing, it's just very interesting to me.
Yeah, this is going to be a really interesting change in WoW. We'll see how it works out. Um, in our next news item, we have patch 12.1's new raid, Lairs, and a loot overhaul, sort of. The 12.1, the new raid, we're getting the Ula'tek raid. There's gonna be 8 bosses there. It's gonna culminate in fighting Ula'tek herself, and that one's gonna be really interesting. I There was Taliesin and Evitel video that went over like their rankings of all of the tier sets for each of the classes. A lot of them look really cool, and if you have a troll, oh man, some of these classes are gonna look so good. I think Shaman one is one of them. And there's like 2 others that just like they're very definitely troll vibes, but not all of them, surprisingly.
Yeah, I'm feeling disappointed with the Paladin tier set.
That one
I
looks pretty
will.
good.
Well, I don't know. I'm sort of.
Did you see all the colorations? Because I think the colorations really make the difference. I don't like Mythic, but I like LFR.
Yeah, I don't know which one's which if they specified. Um,
Yeah, I
but
think you can
the
actually look at them in game right now in the collections.
Oh, maybe. Let me see. Uh, since I'm in game right now, let us.
Yeah, they did. It did
Mm,
seem that when Taliesin and Avatel were doing a little review, that they were opening up their collections and they were kind of like it showed on screen. They were kind of clicking through on those because we don't have a PTR yet, so they wouldn't have been doing it there.
yeah, unfortunately, I don't see it in live retail as we speak.
Hmm.
Um, I will say I do like the Paladin, the one that's sort of the red, blue,
Look,
and gold. That
yeah.
one's
Oh yeah.
pretty good in terms of colors, and I would assume the Mythic one is the black one,
Yeah, I don't
just
like that one.
because. Yeah, just because of the flames coming up. But I don't know. I just think the design, it just sort of seems a bit off. I don't know. Um,
The
there's a lot of.
priest one looks really good. I
I
think a
was,
lot of players were talking about that.
yeah, I was just gonna say that the priest one looks really good, um, and like you mentioned, the shaman one is good. Um, warrior is interesting.
The hunters, okay. Sometimes the hunter's wearing like the bosses as armor is I thought for a little while I was like, it's kind of old, and some of them I just don't like. But this one, it looks so good. I love it.
Yeah, definitely great for this upcoming serpent-based raid.
It's an adorable snake that they have over their head. I know it's a fanged snake and everything, and they get a cool like ninja cowl and face mask and stuff like that they're like wearing, and then the snake head is over that with the fangs hanging over your face. It's a really cool aesthetic, but I just think the snake that's on their head just looks adorable.
Yeah, and we get the snake motif really hard with shamans as well.
Oh yeah, those glowing snakes.
Hmm.
Yeah, they really like putting like glowing 3D assets on shamans. Like they go really hard with like the glowing spell effects with them. It's like a translucent 3D glowing effect of like some model that they always put on shamans, it seems. Right on the
Yeah.
shoulder.
Hmm.
Another mention for the raids here is in 12.1, the raid vault is getting it's getting buffed in the same way that um what is it? I believe it's mythics that sort of drop like a higher tier, right? Like you can do mythic plus dungeons, and you'll run them, and at the end of them, you'll get heroic gear. But at the end of the week, when you open up your vault, when you're being rewarded for those mythic plus dungeons that rewarded you heroic gear out of the chest, the vault loot will be uh, mythic gear, right? So while you're running the dungeon and you're collecting heroic gear, at the end of the week you have a chance at mythic gear. This is the reason why the void cores give you mythic pieces from just running the dungeon. So that's why you can run tens and then use a void core and get a mythic piece. But if you open up the chest, you're getting a heroic piece. And the reason for that is because that's just the way that mythic plus dungeons function. And nothing else in the game did that. If you got heroic loot from the raid, when you open up the vault, you're getting heroic loot.
Yeah. From what it says actually it's all tiers. So LFR normal heroic raid rewards will always be the next step. So for example, if you did um, all heroic raids uh, in your great vault, it will always be at least a mythic 1 out of 6. And if you do a normal, it'll always be a heroic 1 out of 6. So it's always going to be the next step up. Um, Now, the only thing that I have questions on, because it's weird the way it's worded. Um, Mythic Raid, very rare items and loot from the penultimate and final bosses will be acquired at the equivalent of Mythic 9. So I would assume that means like a 9 out of 9. In other words, the second to last in the last boss will always be a 3 item levels ahead of the maximum mythic you can get from the rest of the raid. Um, but I don't think it said. I'm trying to see.
That seems to correlate with the levels in each of the tier tracks. So like mythic, a regular mythic item that drops is going to be 6 out of 6,
Mhm.
right? But then if you go to Sporefall raid and you fight Rotmire, he's going to drop. I think the equivalent is it's supposed to be like 8 out of 8, right?
Right, right.
For like mythic gear or like heroic gear, it's like heroic 8 out of 8. That's kind of I guess that's kind of like what they might be referring to here is that those last two bosses are going to drop something that's equivalent to that. So it might still say 6 out of 6, but maybe there's like that cantrip on there, and then you see the heightened item level. So it'll probably be like 9 item levels higher, kind of like how they're doing with the system at the end of the season.
Yeah, I just wish they put it at like Mythic eye level 9, or was a little bit more clear on that.
Yeah. But basically, what this does mean is that whatever players have been experiencing in Mythic Plus dungeons, it's the same system, right?
Yeah.
Like this is already something that we're sort of used to. But I think it's going to work out really well because not everybody, a lot more people are running tens because you get that chance at that myth gear, and then that's going to give you a chance at myth gear in your vault. So it's really good. But there's still some players who only run as high as heroic dungeons. That's kind of like the top for them. So this is also a really good change. You're going to be able to run your whole heroic route, get all the bosses down for the week, even if you're pugging it. There's a lot of heroic pugs that are successful, and when the vault comes around, you'll have a chance at mythic loot. There's just another opportunity for mythic loot, and again, it's lowering the barriers for being able to get the high item level, the high throughput, the high damage, and so damage kind of those things aren't really a concern anymore. It's the fights that we're dealing with here are all mechanic heavy, and that's kind of like the new meta, right? Like that's what you should be focusing on for progression is getting those mechanics down because the gear is not going to help you this time around.
Right. And as they stated, the reason that they're even doing this as far as raids are concerned is to get that more of a balance, and to make sure that the rewards from the Great Vault, you know, like you said, are in line with the Mythic pluses, so that, you're not going to be constantly just doing heroic raids to progress, but then you're relying on Mythic Plus to carry you in terms of the items that you get.
hmm So there was a change with the catalyst um, charges and well, not really the charges, but the catalyst system in the way that you can forge your gear. It is going to inherit the original item's secondary stat and certain, but not all, cantrip effects. So there are going to be certain things where you get a really unique item and it does something kind of cool. You're not going to have to abandon that. You can just go ahead and throw it in there, get it catalyzed. You're going to be keeping, some identity of that original item, and so I think that that's really interesting for players. I think that adds a little bit of nuance to your gearing progression because before it was doesn't matter, any chest, don't care, just put it on. Now, there may be some gloves out there that have an equip effect or something, and those will be really good for you because they synergize with another part of your gear, and you'll be able to keep that instead of having to make the choice of whether you catalyze it or use the other 4 out of 5 pieces to catalyze.
Yeah, which again, great quality of life. Happy to see it.
And another item on here, the thing we were talking about earlier, the Ascendant Venom Stones. There's going to be a new NPC that we'll talk to for upgrading our gear in season 1 or season 2 in 12.1, and you're going to be using Ascendant Venom Stones. So we'll probably get them basically in the same way that we're getting them now, where we're defeating bosses and such, and anywhere you're able to get them now. Like there's a lot of places, but we'll be able to upgrade necklaces as well as weapons and trinkets. So that's pretty good. So one more piece of our item is going to be able to be ascended. So that's something to look forward to. Then we have a lot of class changes that came in the patch notes, and there was just there was a lot of stuff. It was just we got a lot. They also showed off all the tier sets. We were talking about that a little bit earlier, but really just the cosmetics, not any like the actual 4 set, 2 set bonuses. Um, but yeah, some notable callouts: Retro Druid, a big quality of life pass, Innervate, redesigned to restore 25% mana over 8 seconds, Abundance, reworked around a 5 rejuvenation threshold. Right now it's 12, so that is going to be really interesting. Tranquility now roots and absorbs.
Yeah, they actually did later on release the tier set bonuses. For
Oh, nice.
example, with as play Resto Druid, Rejuvenation has a 15% chance, and Nature Swiftness is a 100% chance to grant Genesis, causing all your heal over time effects to heal for 25% more for 8 seconds. Multiple applications may overlap, and the 4-set bonus is Genesis duration is increased by 4 seconds, and gaining Genesis grants clear casting. So this is,
Oh my.
yeah, we're at the stage now that the next patch is going to come out. We're going to see the tier sets, actually work more with the talents and to be utilized more. For the past few expansions, I believe it's since Dragonflight, the idea is that the tier sets are more or less basic, just to get you into the swing of things with class changes, talent changes, etc. This is when we're going to see the big changes. And as far as what I can see from like the patch notes, um, since I play uh, Protection Paladin, um, what's very interesting is that for us, we have had the talent called Sentinel for a long time. Now, Sentinel will replace Avenging Wrath and act as Avenging Wrath. The only thing is, Sentinel, because of the way it works, um, they remove the bonus crit chance that you normally get with Avenging Wrath. Avenging Wrath gives you 20% bonus damage as well as an extra 20% flat crit. Um, and with this new change with Sentinel, they're actually going to keep the crit with the talent. So I don't think they have up yet um, where it's going to be at, but they're also shifting the talent, presumably that you can take uh, like it doesn't take up where you get Avenging Wrath normally. So either it's going to be a bonus or it's going to be put in such a way where you can take both. I'm not 100% sure. Um, but the other interesting thing that they announced is that throughout all of the classes, um, they're reducing the effectiveness of burst damage slash cooldowns. Again, another example is that Avenging Wrath is going from the 20% bonus damage and crit to only 10% bonus damage and crit. Um, However, in doing so, the individual moves, the individual attacks, talents, etc., they're going to have more uh, basic throughput, more basic damage or effectiveness for healing. The reason being, they said, is that they don't want the gameplay to feel like you're only good and it's only fun to play within the uh, uh, timing whenever you can get up your individual uh, uh, high throughput moves. Again, like Avenging Wrath. So they're moving a lot of that damage or healing into the moves themselves and lowering the effectiveness of the big cooldowns.
Yeah, that is interesting. I mean, yeah, in the developer notes, as they mentioned that, um, I I feel like this is going to be very different in this next season. I mean, just taking a look at the little bit of changes that are coming to my class and spec for Resto Druid, if we're moving away from 12 stacks of abundance, because that's the cap, right? Abundance will cap out at 12. So that's at 12, it's doing, I think it's like a 98% reduction and a 98% like crit chance or something for things. It's just the bonuses I get are capped out at that percentage, but it takes, the way that they're divided up, it takes 12 of them to get there, right? And now we're down to 5. So, um, it seems that, well, with the 5, it's only 50%. And so I
Mm,
I'm not. It's maybe it doesn't go all the way up to 12.
Right.
So um, I think it's not going to stop. The way that it's worded, it says abundance has been redesigned. While you have at least 5 rejuvenations active, regrowth's critical strike chance is increased by 50%, and its mana cost is reduced by 50%. Now, the way that it works right now is that each stack gives you a set amount of percentage towards the total goal of, I think it's like 98% at 12 stacks. So that 98% is divided into 12 um, segments, and each one you get is the exact same, and they all add up to 98 when you have 12. And so it's, as they tick down, it just kind of stays low. I don't It says at least 5 rejuvenations active. um so I don't think that it's going to be counting abundance stacks now, because right now currently I get 1 stack of abundance for each of these. So the way it sounds is that it's just going to be counting my rejuvenations, and then if I have 5 or more, I'll just get the buff. And so I'm not micromanaging staying near 12, because right now if I drop, I'll allow myself to drop to like 7 or 8, and then I'll start spamming rejuvenations again, and then I'm focused on that unless my rotation pulls me out. I have to hit something that's on cooldown, and then I go back to managing the rejuvenations and keeping them up because I can see my stacks of abundance specifically. With this removed, it's just such a big change because it sounds like I'm not going to be looking at stacks of abundance anymore ever. I'm just going to know in general if I have the buff or not. And I just want to keep the buff. And I can just throw a bunch of rejuvenations out there or spread them around and such, and in a way that I think really allows me to play the class a little bit more in the way that I want, where I'm able to focus on like the main rotation instead of like metagaming on this one little thing that I'm trying to maintain.
Right, exactly. Um, and hopefully that's going to be with every class. It's interesting because they already cut down classes quite a bit in terms of move sets and everything. Um, so I'm hoping with these changes, just in general, like you said, it's going to be less about micromanaging and more about um, not just playing your class or the game, but it'll make it a lot easier, especially during whatever chaos they're going to bring us with the new raids and their new mechanics. And then that way, things will essentially kind of even themselves out. You're not micromanaging as much, but instead you're more focused on the mechanics, what's going on, etc.
Yeah, increasing the damage from the mobs and our health by 25% so that we can like, I guess like the way that the developer notes are saying is they want less spiky damage going in and out, right? And so it just sounds like it's going to be a lot more of just like a smooth distribution of healing. But it also sounds like maybe our throughput's not going to be as high, right? Like I'm not getting a 98% reduction in mana cost and and critical strike increase, right? Like it's only 50%. I don't get anything higher than that. So that's half of what I was doing before. I don't know how that's going to feel. Like I think I like the idea of things slowing down a little bit. But there are people who really enjoy, especially in Mythic Plus, like they're I don't know how it's going to affect Mythic Plus, because that's a different situation than Raid in the way that that functions, and at certain higher keys or even getting close to like getting your 3400 for some people, that difference, it might not be enough.
That's a good point. Hopefully, they'll tune them, you know, so that it's not going to those outrageous limits with health, DPS, etc. Um,
I mean,
the
because they're
only
slowing down healing, right? Like if
right,
they're slowing down how much like damage people are taking, that's kind of pointing at like that's why like I see the reduction there is because they're trying to slow us down, which like they've made those changes before and they're good for certain certain kinds of gameplay, but people forget that PvP is part of the gameplay, right? Like, and arenas are a competitive part of the gameplay, and I've usually like played different, like I've played PvP a lot, and so things that will affect raiders and people were like, "This is great!" Like it completely changes how people compete, you know. And then
Right,
now that goes for Mythic Plus.
right. And that also brings up, sort of the other issue of what's meta and stuff. So hopefully this might open up um, the ability to have a greater meta, if that makes sense. You don't necessarily have to have um, a Vengeance Demon Hunter or Prot Warrior for every dungeon you want to max out. Um, you know, whether or not that's going to happen, I don't know. But I think the larger issue, unfortunately, is the dungeon selection for season two, which it's definitely a choice.
Yeah, a lot of people were not happy about the Mythic Dungeon rotation this time around. We do get a few new ones, of course. That always happens. We get like one or two new ones, right? And then the rest of that half of the lineup is Midnight Dungeons, and then the second half is like four of them are like classic or something, right? Or like previous.
Yeah, they've been doing it a while now, where even now they're within the season's dungeon rotation. There'll be, I think, for season one, it's four dungeons. In this case, it's going to be um, just three previous dungeons as well as one of the new dungeons. Um, the problem is, especially coming from someone who's done these dungeons before, both in terms of just playing them as well as doing Mythic Plus, we have Ruby life pools, which really can turn into just absolute chaos, especially at the beginning. And a lot of people it was famous for a lot of people just either not doing them outright, or if you didn't do the first pool, I don't know, not even just perfect, but a-okay, um, people would just leave. Temple of Sethralus was a real chore. Um, it was a lot of things could cast on you, a lot of things could damage you. There was also at the near the end of the dungeon, uh, if memory serves, I believe it's this one, where there's a point where you have to grab two orbs to put on a snake statue. And in order to do that, one person would have to grab one orb while everybody else tries to DPS these mobs that would try to slow you down. And so, as soon as a person picks up the orb, the enemies will try to take it from you, and all the while slowing you down, whoever has picked it up. You had to do that at least twice, one on the left, one on the right. Um, to call it annoying would be an understatement. And the last boss of that dungeon was also very famous for causing wipes, because it didn't work properly, as well as it being pure annoyance with them casting uh, charms on you and turning you into bullfrogs and such. King's Rest, that's more, in my opinion, more of a annoying dungeon than it is a real bad one. Um, but as far as the dungeon selection is concerned, obviously all three of them except for, or I guess all of them except for, let's see, uh, I guess two or three, including the previous dungeons, are all troll themed, or at the very least have some sort of tangential um, relation to trolls. So
We also
King's
get
Rest,
some troll themed stuff in the delves too.
yeah. So I know what they're going for. I know what they're doing, but the dungeon selection just doesn't sound very good. Murder Row is fine. I know Kane our Death Knight was complaining about Den of Nalarok just being a bore. I can definitely see that, but the best, the worst decision, I guess, is that we are finally having to face the Blinding Veil, which, if you were doing M0s at the beginning of this expansion, you would know as pretty much just pure torture. High damage, high, just, I don't know. It was high damage, and if you screwed up on the mechanics, especially on the last boss, you were toast.
That was
Um,
the one with all the little vines.
yep.
Yeah.
So hopefully they tune that better and fix it. I believe Void Scar Arena is pretty straightforward, and same thing with Murder Row, fine with those. But I don't know. It's just these choices, I think, especially for the previous dungeons or dungeons of the past, are pretty bad.
A lot of people were worried about Pit of Sauron and a couple others coming into the Mythic rotation this time around, and they turned out pretty good. I think that we will probably be surprised about how these things are tuned for Mythic, or if there's any changes that we don't know about yet. But the PTR should be releasing pretty soon, and we'll be able to take a look and get some news on some of these coming out pretty soon. Speaking of the Mythic plus dungeons, um, and my concern with healing output and such, with the other classes, I'm not really sure, but just taking a look at the Restoration Druid patch notes and the developer notes that they had added in with this, they're aiming to get some like quality of life improvements, like making the class perhaps a little bit simpler. And some of the changes here um, are really good. One is just straight up quality of life, and is innervate, or sorry, tranquility. When you cast tranquility, you're going to grow roots. You'll be stuck to the ground, and you will not be able to be knocked back, which is great. This is awesome. However, not being able to knock back or knock up, like there are certain mechanics that you might lock yourself out of in a mythic dungeon. So like use that like intently, right? Like you should be really smart about that now that it's going to be really new. The tranquility is going to lock you down. But there's going to be some new things with that for players to think about. But when there's something for Isera's gift, it's been updated. If its healing would overheal the druid, the overhealing amount is instead transferred to a nearby ally. This is really cool because in the way that some of the mechanics work, you can put an Everbloom on yourself, right, and just position yourself to be close to the group, and then right, because there's sometimes like, oh, I'll just put on the tank. Sometimes tank has to contend with mechanics, and they got to pull things away from the group, right? Or you're a range heavy group, so nobody is on the tank, right? So in a situation like that, in a Mythic Plus, you have to kind of change where you're going to have your Everbloom on, and the AOE kind of healing that just continuously does, and it kind of follows you around. You want that in on like different people. Sometimes if it's on you, the concern would be that there's be a lot of overhealing, and while it may be okay, like sometimes it might not be enough, or you might just heal yourself when you could have been healing someone else. This one, it sounds like it's gonna be a lot easier. Like you're just gonna with this Sierra's gifts, you're just gonna be able to just overheal, just you, just pump all the heals on you, because all of your hots as they tick have a chance to have your Everbloom bloom, and when it blooms, it is like a bunch of healing. And you can, if you're sitting there and you fill yourself up with hots and you have Everbloom on, like you can just hear it bursting like all the time. It's like a sound spell effect as well, the audio effect with it as well, and it just sounds like that's going to be kind of like the new meta. So even though the healing output and such is going to go down, I think at least for the redesign with Resto, we're going to be fine in Mythic Plus dungeons. And I imagine that they've taken a similar approach to some of the other classes, the other healing classes, in how they want to do this. So it's going to be really interesting for the next season. So, on to our final news item that we have for today. We're going to cover last little bit of 12.1 and what we found out with these patch notes, right? The housing items and features that we're getting are pretty awesome. We've been talking about because they gave us a roadmap, sort of, and kind of showed what we can expect from housing and kind of the ideas that they're throwing around. One of those was blueprints, being able to save things. They even mentioned it in an interview, and they were talking about their ambition to create a sort of blueprint system that allows you to take a room or the entire interior of your house or the entire exterior of your house, um, and share that. I think there was even some mention of taking like groupings of items, like let's say you built a piano and you want to share that, but that's not in this update. But being able to get a whole room is it's so cool. They also have a couple UI elements that come with that that allow you to see exactly what you need, exactly what you don't have, and there's some other information in this like really helpful for players. So this is going to be this is gonna be a really good system. There doesn't seem to be very much missing from a feature like this as they've described it. So I'm really looking forward to be able to use these blueprints. And personally, I have built my house and I really enjoy it. And as somebody who role plays, when I built my house, I definitely had a couple of my characters in mind in kind of like who is living in this space and how I decorate it. Um, I don't have, I very quickly realized I don't have room or budget or anything to fit everyone in. I have a lot of alts. And so it's always kind of been a thing of mine where I've really wanted a space for all of them once housing has come out, but we've not really gotten that. And with this feature, I'm going to I'm going to turn my house into a single room with a control panel in the middle. And just anytime I come into the house with one of my alts, I'm just gonna, role play that I'm at the control panel and just use the blueprint system to load up my house, like per character.
I like that idea. Um, this is really I would argue, the main thing that housing needed. The reason
Absolutely.
being just being able to, you know, I would argue exporting it and like sharing it is one thing. That's great. You can make it look like someone else's, but just the sheer ability to, back up your house and then redeploy it as you see fit. And therefore, you don't have to start from the very beginning. You don't have
Decorate
to.
for Halloween.
Right, exactly.
Dude,
Um,
yes, put all the cool stuff around and then just push a button and it's the previous version which is exactly the same, but without your Halloween stuff.
yeah, and it's funny you mentioned that because that is what the garrisons had.
Oh,
I
really?
Yeah, I know, definitely for Wintervale, and I believe for Halloween as well. Basically, during Wintervale, um, I know for sure about this. Uh, for Halloween, I honestly forget. But basically, during the Wintervale event, you can use the presents you get from uh, the dailies as well as killing the Grinch. Um, I always forget how they spell that. But you can use those to get I believe it's called something like a box of decorations. And once you get that box of decorations, if you talk to one of the NPCs that's right uh, in front of the exit in your garrison, they'll be by like a trader's cart. If you talk to them, you can actually choose, do you want to have your garrisons as normal or Wintervale themed? And you can actually change that at will at any time throughout, the entire year. Um,
Oh, nice.
yeah, so you're not just limited to, only having the Wintervale stuff for Wintervale. So for me, I've had my garrisons be Wintervale themed ever since I unlocked that.
That's
Uh,
cool. An
So
everlasting winter wonderland.
exactly. So having that ability, putting a Christmas tree and like a nice little fireplace. Hopefully they'll. I don't know if they have it yet, but like a plate of cookies for Santa Claus and such. That's going to be really neat.
Yeah, I, you know, th- another thing for this is I am personally, I'm really proud of my house and the way that it is, and I'm a little attached, and I don't want to change anything. And even though I sort of have some ideas of like, I can make this really good, or I can make this a lot better, I don't really want to try because because I'm worried that I'll like change it and then I won't like it and then I won't be able to take it back. But
Right.
now I can save before I try to make any changes. If I don't like it, I'll just go right back to what I had before and then try it again. I think this is going to bring out a lot of creativity in the community and bring people back into housing. I think I've been saying it for a while. The fact that this feature is missing is the reason why I am not touching my house.
Exactly, exactly. And it's going to get someone like me who's never done housing yet to do it because now I'm not limited or afraid to make any even, initial changes or laying anything down, period. So, um, you know, it's obviously they wanted to work on it, I think, for the release of this expansion, but implementing something like that, I can't really fathom just because of how much housing has been um, not just iterated upon, but I mean, just think about that. You can do the inside, the outside, and because players were able to around with the system, we're able to make their houses float above the ground. So I can't imagine what sort of um, variables that they're having to work around both with and against to even bring that into being for something that's, I don't know, seemingly infinite for the game. I mean, you can make furniture small or big, or you can be within the limits of the house, or you can be without the limits, and then put
I saw
stuff sort
someone
of.
make a portrait of Xalatath using items.
Yeah, and they've done like a South Park themed one based on the World of Warcraft episode, and
I love it.
such different crazy things. So um, it's just a great thing to see, and I do not envy how just difficult that must have been.
Yeah, I this is I'm going to love this feature. This is going to be wonderful, but I'm going to love even more because even if I didn't get this feature, I would love the fact that pet beds are finally coming.
Yes, sir. And not only that, but actual pet pathing.
Yes, they figured it out. So we're getting unique pathing and um I it seemed that there was an implication in the way that it was presented because I watched an interview with a spokesperson from Wowhead and two people from the Blizzard team, and they sort of mentioned something about when they talked about the pet beds about them having like a sort of unique like pathing system that they figured out. They didn't really say anything else, but the video clips that they had used kind of showed um the things kind of pathing around, moving around the furniture and such. But they had specifically mentioned something. Their wording was strange. It was that there was like a perhaps an understanding of what furniture items you have around your home. And then the next clip was a cat sitting on a like on a seat, like a couch seat. I honestly have no idea what that's called. Like a couch
Uh,
chair, basically,
uh,
right?
yeah, like a chaise lounge.
Yeah. And so the little cat was sitting on there, and the spokesperson from Wowhead in that moment, of course, right? It was like, oh, I can't wait to have my cat to like have like a seat or something in the chair just for me and have my cat take it over. Right. And so there's a, again, well, they didn't say anything. The way that the conversation had gone and the way that they had edited the video, where they were, cutting in the examples and such, and the fact that the WoW had spokesperson had like kind of mentioned this, it seems to me that knowing what furniture is in your house is going to be significant to some of the pets. Probably not all of them, but if there's some sort of like unique feature, let's say for cats, right? We all know cats love sitting on your stuff, sitting on your countertop, sitting on like the highest point that they can get to. So if there's a way that they can do the pathing for that, I think that there's going to maybe be a preference for that, right? Because all the items you have around your house are sort of in a category of like what what kind of item it is, right? Because you can filter them inside your collections. That being said, I think that players are going to see some weird things because, for example, I will put a tiny chair inside of something so that you can sit on the object and not like I have barrels in front of my bar, but you can sit on them like they're a chair because I made a tiny chair and I put it in the middle of the barrel. So if the cat is trying to like sit on the chair and it goes to sit on like the art of the chair, but not in actually like where the player sits on the chair, like it's gonna be weird. I don't know how that's gonna work out, or if cats are gonna be drawn to certain things that are just like you know what I mean? Like if they tag it with like certain furniture items, like and players are like making a piece of art on their wall that's like full of just random furniture items and stuff, like because they just use whatever. Like I think there's going to be some weird issues with that, right? Because that's a very nuanced situation of like that's not a bunch of chairs, that's actually a portrait, like a Picasso.
Yeah, maybe they'll allow you to say like an extra tag on elements like that that says this is not a chair or something equivalent to that. That way, something like that doesn't happen. Uh, Again, like you said, obviously we don't necessarily have all the answers, but I think that would probably, make the most sense. Um, but I do find it interesting the idea of having the pets, you know, in general having their own AI. Um, to maybe, or maybe you could even say this cat likes this couch or this bed more than the other, stuff like that. So we'll see.
Yeah, so yeah, it's gonna be pretty exciting to see. And honestly, some of those problems are probably just edge cases. Not a lot of players are gonna be able to or gonna be in a position where they're gonna experience that. So I think it's gonna be fine overall. And I'm just really excited about having the pets in there and the fact that they can path around and that there's implication that they're gonna be hanging out on our furniture in really silly ways that I expect from my animals, right? Like I would love it. I mean, I know they're gonna sleep on their like little dog bed, right, or little pet bed, but I would love to have like a little corgi and they came up and they slept on my bed. It'd be wonderful.
Definitely. And you know, um, I would hope that maybe they'll add little like sleeping animations specific to pets. Um, that would be really cool and cute. But that might be um, a little too advanced for right now. But even
Hmm.
just the idea, they can crawl up on your bed and maybe they'll put like a little uh, heart icon above them, you know, and allowing you to pet them would be great.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Because we could pet a lot of other pets in the game, random animals and such around NPCs. Um, yeah, this is just really exciting because we have a lot of promised features for housing. This is an evergreen feature. We're gonna have this forever for the rest of WoW, and I'm excited to just. It just the ceiling is so high on this. There's so much room to grow, and every step of the way, it's gonna be awesome. I love that it's even better now. Granted, there was a little bit of stagnation in the community, and I think this one feature here that's being released solves that. I don't know if it's going to solve it forever, but it's definitely a temporary solution for right now. But I think going forward, it's going to be pretty good. I think this feature breaks down a barrier that kept a lot of people out, and we're going to continue to get a lot of cool stuff like mounts outside of our house. I can't wait to park all of my motorcycles that I've collected so everybody in my neighborhood can see how cool I am.
Exactly.
Especially if you can make some of your mounts like float or fly or have them in a flying animation, or I don't know if they had a path. Like, dude, if you had the sparkle pony, maybe you want that little guy to do some rounds around your yard, you know? Maybe you got like a pen and you got a bunch of horses. Like, you really want them standing, you know? And you want a statue horse? Do you want like an animated horse like walking around grazing?
Exactly, and maybe even like a horse trough or something similar you could see them drink from,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
just to see that interaction.
I mean, that sounds like an item that would come in our Blizzard store in the
Yeah,
in-game shop. Um, but honestly, I think that's a great candidate for an item in the shop, right? So that's an interactive feature. That's kind of a quality feature there, right? It's not just a piece of furniture. It does something extra. Um, that seems like a pretty good candidate for, and it's so nuanced, right? That would I don't maybe some players would be really upset about that. Just put one in the trader post and you'll be fine.
hmm
Okay, so that basically does it for all the news updates that we had for today. There was a lot to cover. We covered a lot. 12.1 is going to be really exciting. 12.0.7 has been pretty dang good so far, but of course, been busy. Haven't really been able to dive into some of this content. I'm going to try that this weekend. So hopefully next week we'll have something to say about some of these new features. First thing I'm going to do is actually I'm going to jump into the lore walking when I get on today because I really want to see. I want to find out about the Loa. Troll lore is just so cool, and I always thought Loas were like really mysterious and Bomb is kind of funny. I'm not gonna lie, I thought that guy was hilarious.
yeah, he is the sort of the Joker of World of Warcraft. You never know what he's going to do, and you never know, um, how to take him if he's serious or not.
He sort of reminded me of this. There, there was this troll on the bottom level of Shathrath, and his troll name is Grifda, and
Oh
he's a
yes,
grifter. Brand new to the game, right? I'm joining at the tail end of TBC right as Wrath is launching. I'm leveling through Outland, and I come across this guy, and he's got some pretty cool items. I thought that the little bobblehead, the Tiki girl, was ridiculous. That it was so high priced. I had nowhere near that much money, and but then he had some really cheap items, and well, like a couple of them were like, okay, well that already happens in game, so obviously I don't need that, and that seems weird. But this other item says I can like jump or some. It said something about jumping or so, and I got grifted. He got me.
oh,
I didn't know, and then I asked my friend who got me into the game, and I was like, "Man, what is up with this item?" And he's like, "Dude, no, read his name." And this one Boam Somni, maybe just because he's a troll, he just gave me the same kind of vibes. Like there's just like a real like just a comedic element to the way he interacted with you as a player. Um, but he also seemed like a damn grifter.
yeah, that is him, and I will say he's also after. Um, he sort of how do I he serves himself. It's
And
not
he's
about.
ridiculously powerful too.
Mhm. So hopefully, see, that's also why I was kind of surprised with the dungeon list that they didn't do um, the one. Let's see, I have to find the name real quick. I think it's in Battle for Azeroth. Uh,
Yeah, BFA was heavy on the Boam Somni.
oh, I'm sorry, from Shadowlands. I was very surprised we didn't get the other side. Not only because he's very present there, like he's constantly talking to you in it. But for example, Hakar is there.
Oh,
You face the Mana Storms, and you also face um, uh, Wazala, the Father of Sleep, Son of Time, the Knight's Friend, as it describes him. And at the end, Bonsandi, both of us, both you as the players and Bonsandi worked together to take him out. So I was very surprised that that wasn't a part of it.
Dang. Yeah, that one. I don't think I played that dungeon, or at least I don't really remember it. But yeah, that one seems pretty cool. I think it was a missed opportunity to not put that one in the dungeon list for this next season.
Yeah, especially because, it's not just the bosses and Bonsandi, you're actually in the other side. So, you know, beyond not only death, but seeing sort of uh, the trolls and stuff with the Loa and everything.
And this isn't just because you hate some of the current lineup, right?
No, I actually, so I actually like the other side as well. And again, you're right. It's not just because of the lineup. Um, I'm just very like, I don't know. It was a good dungeon. It had Winsomni in it, which, and it's very, troll themed, etc. Um, what I thought it was going to be is four old dungeons and, you know, four new dungeons. But instead, it's what, five new dungeons and only three old dungeons, which, in previous expansions, it's been half and half.
In
Even this
last in
patch.
this season, it's been half and half, right? Didn't we go
Yeah,
four old ones in this one? So this is kind of a change up.
yeah, and the only exception, of course, being at the end of the expansion, they have just all the, new dungeons. You don't do any old dungeons, which makes sense.
Yeah. All right, so well, that is gonna do it for us on this one. I do want to mention our progress. So we are still progressing on Salad Bar, but we've got Chimeras and of course all the previous bosses and Voidspire down. So we're doing pretty good. We suspect that Dragons is not going to give us as much trouble, but Paladins is definitely going to be something to contend with. But like I've said before, once our Raiders lock in on a boss and we down that boss, they're basically on farm. We don't They don't become a wall again for us. And we ran into that last season, which was the last season of the War Within, and there was a couple bosses that we had some regression on, but this season we're just punching right through every single time. So it's been really good. So definitely, if you guys are looking for a raid or a raid team, hit us up. You can join the Discord, or there are several other ways to find our guild online. We are Second Attempt, and I think the server is Sargeras, and you should be able to find us on like raid logs and such. Um, and so before we go, if you want to support the show, the best way is through our Patreon. Every bit helps us keep the lights on, improve the production, and keep this going forward every week. You can find us at patreon.com/lastattemptpod. If you can't spare the gold, that's totally fine. You can still help in a big way at no cost. You can find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and we'd love it if you can drop a rating and a review. Biggest thing you can do is to help us find new listeners. So just share this with anybody that you know. If they used to play World of Warcraft, or they play it now. But we do have a lot of listeners right now. Or at least I think it's a lot. We don't even have as many episodes as we have listeners. So I think that's really cool.
Hmm.
And the you can also find us on YouTube, and as well as our other socials: Twitter, now X, Instagram, TikTok, and now Twitch.tv. We're also on there as well. Every single one of those, we are Last Attempt Pod, so pretty easy to find on all the platforms. Go over there, check us out. If you find us, add us up, right? Get a comment on our socials and such. If you got any questions, those would be a really good place to drop a question. We'll find them. I don't check them every single week, but I'm gonna get that in my rotation of what things I do. But we got more listeners than we got commenters, so we don't really get too many comments in any of those places. But if you got any questions or corrections, maybe we got something wrong, especially when we talk about lore. It's really complicated lore. There's a lot of stuff. There's 25 years of, actually like 30 years of like lore that goes into this game, and a lot of it's been retconned in a bunch of different ways. So there are times that we get things wrong. So if you catch us on something, definitely comment on our stuff and let us know. Um, where can these people find you, Templar? I know you stream every week our raids.
Yep, you can just the easiest way to find me is just go into your browser and type thehumandistraction.com, all as one word, and that'll take you straight to my Twitch page.
Awesome. And if I ever decide to stream, you guys can find me at twitch.tv/squirrelthug underscore. Um, and yeah, I'll figure that out someday. But until then, that'll be us. We appreciate all of you listening, and it's been great. Once again, great episode. Thank you, Templar, for coming again. And that's it. See ya.
Laters.